I'm Nicholas Johnson. This is a giant PDU I haven't hooked up yet, and today I'm talking about the current state of Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and Ethereum mining at the Space Warehouse. Let's begin where it began. Actually, right here on my desk with a single RTX 3080, the Founders Edition. I bought my first GPU after watching this video from Bayahaza. He fumbled through setting up a rig. He thought he was mining Bitcoin for some reason, but it looked really fun to put together, and passive income is such a dream. How could the Amex say no? How could the Amex say anything, really, when you think about it? It couldn't, and it didn't. And oh, how quickly one 3080 turned into 3 and then 5 3080s. I did not buy these at a good price, but that was fine. It wasn't my money. Do you know that when these things are this color, they don't have a spending limit? How utterly reckless. Proof of stake was still really far out. I think this was a year ago now. It might still be really far out. Who knows? But the numbers worked out that these things would still make more money than they cost before the merge, and then they would still have value afterwards by converting them each into gaming computers and selling them if I ever decided to get out of the game after Ethereum proof of stake. But in reality, I'm not going to stop mining. I'm never going to stop mining. Miner bros for life. The computer, currently sitting right there in my studio, performs its work on the Ethereum network with 3 RTX 3080s anytime I'm not playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is most of the time. These cards are all from the first batch, so not the low hash rate versions. 2 of them I had to rip out of this Aorus Gaming Box eGPU enclosure. I made a video about that in May of 2021. It's up here. Those are actually water cooled, so they run really quiet and don't have a case of any kind, so they're kind of a mess. But then I'm kind of a bit of a mess, and aren't we all? I guess probably not everyone. Also, quick sidebar, for some reason there's been this forever debate on using SATA connectors to power 16x to 4x risers. I'm sorry, but the long-term data is in. You're doing something else wrong if you're burning up cord. This little guy has been plugged in and overclocked this way for 52 weeks. I don't know what else to say. Next, I have another 3080 on its own motherboard on a shelf in my new virtual reality room at the warehouse, hashing away on its spare time, which is almost all the time. Who has spare time? I rarely, but sometimes go in there to wave my arms around and bump into the walls playing Beat Saber or Gorn. The people in my Discord server say this one is seriously lacking in RGB, so I'm accepting all RGB related recommendations. Right now I have green RAM from Crucial. And finally, for GPUs, performing Overwatch at the Hurricane Room, I have another one of those water-cooled Aorus 3080s, dissected from its shell, hashing away on Kudo Miner, pulling in little bits of Ethereum all day long. This fella also sits on the same local network as all of my ASIC, for those times when I just want to gaze at their dashboards and see what they're up to, or when I need to send in a request for a restart for when who knows why these things stop working every once in a while. Although Windows is kind of annoying and doesn't always restart after a power blip, and also doesn't always not restart when it decides it wants to randomly do an update and reinstall drivers that cut my hash rate in half for some reason. So I've got that going for me. I'm still feeling really good about GPU mining, and beyond that, I've been looking at Flux as an alternative. I'm gonna go ahead and build an AMD rig to complement my NVIDIA cards and put my money where my mouth is. Gross. Paper money is gross. Anyway, the space design Ethereum mine seems to be pulling in about $16 to $19 a day, so call it $17.50. So they're pulling in about 525 USD worth of ETH per month. That sentence is uncomfortable, like typing the word brewery. I don't know how to calculate the electrical cost for these because I have a whole roof full of solar that produces more electricity than the house uses, including these cards. So electricity is sort of free until we start factoring in the ASICs. So on to the ASICs. Oh no, wait, I have a Helium miner. I actually have 3. My Bobcats have just arrived. My Bobcat miners that I ordered in the middle of 2021 have arrived this week, May of 2022. I have access to my house, my warehouse, and my wife's dad lives in a high-rise apartment downtown Orlando. There's a downtown Orlando. So I'll rig one of these bad boys like 100 feet off the ground to see how much better that works in a dense urban environment in the next week or so. The jovial chocolate sparrow made 2.34 helium in the last 30 days. And at today's price of $15, that means that thing has produced a whopping 35 bucks, or the equivalent of 13 little 10-ounce buckets of baked beans at my favorite barbecue place in Orlando. And that's not nothing. So we're at 525 from the GPUs and 35 bucks from the helium thing. Next up, Litecoin Dogecoin mining. Andy and Blake won't stop texting. I have 3 L3 pluses. Actually, one of them is an L3++ to be precise. The last time I looked into these things, they were making just over the cost of the price of the electricity to run them. Yeah, these guys are pulling in just over $8 a day combined. And looking on ASIC miner value, that's about $1 a day more than they cost. But we'll factor in electricity later on. They're averaging $7.83 per day over the last week. So the L3s add $234 a month to the Scrooge McDuck coin pool. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I, A, spend a lot of time around quite a bit of art at these shows all over the country, and B, I tend to make sometimes questionable investments ranging into the tens of thousands of dollars. Somehow, though, I've never managed to combine these two things and invest in art. I didn't know this, but it turns out the contemporary art market beat the S&P 500, generally accepted as one of the safer investment vehicles, by 164% from 1995 to 2021, with an average of 14% returns per year. The reason I don't buy art yet is because the art artists that carry those kinds of returns are the same artists that you've heard of: Picasso, Monet, Basquiat, and even Banksy. And to buy a work from one of these artists would cost me well into the millions of dollars. But with an innovative company called Masterworks, you can now invest in shares of $1 million piece of history. And once they sell a piece that you've got a stake in, you better believe they're not going to sell it for less than they bought it for. You get your share of those profits. So far, Masterworks has returned over 30% net IRR to investors each after the sale of 3 paintings, one of them a Banksy. Although legally I have to add that past performance is no guarantee of future results. They've also got a secondary market on their website where you can buy and sell those shares if maybe you've decided you don't want to wait until a particular piece sells. These aren't just shares in some theoretical piece of art either. Later this year, I'm going to be visiting Masterworks Gallery in New York City, and I'm going to show you the physical pieces of art that you can invest in. Art does not follow the stock market or the crypto markets. Looking at the Bitcoin chart just yesterday, 7% drop, oof. You can see why you might want to diversify at least some of your investments, and I think this is a really innovative and smart way to do that. You can get started super easy. There's a link to Masterworks towards the top of the description. Thank you, Masterworks, for sponsoring this video and putting this opportunity in front of me and my viewers. Finally, rounding out the Space Warehouse mining operation are my 6 S19j Bitcoin miners. There are 2 living in the she shed at the moment, one of which is the highly experimental guinea pig of all my DIY immersion builds. What you're seeing here is the 4th iteration of my home-built immersion cooling setup. It's been running now for about 2 months without a break. This is a 100 terahash machine that I have overclocked to 114 terahash. This whole mess runs out to 2 24 by 24 inch 3-loop radiators out behind the she shed. You don't need that much radiation power. This whole mess is left over from my attempt to heat my swimming pool with Bitcoin miners, which worked, by the way, but I had used the wrong heat exchanger and haven't gotten around to ordering the right one. So I used that plumbing as a redundancy instead and just added a second radiator. Plus, overclocking uses a ton of power, and a ton of power makes a ton of heat. Eventually, I'm gonna get around to modifying that power supply, hey Mark, so I can shove 7,000 watts through this machine and see what it does. Also living in the she shed is a totally stock air-cooled S19j 100 terahash. No overclock for this one, but it does have these cool variable speed fans that suck out all the hot air, and another one blowing on these pumps so they don't get too hot. I'll put a link in the description for those. They're pretty quiet and really strong. Actually, if anyone can 3D print a shroud that fits 6 inches on one side and then the intake exhaust of an S19j on the other side, I'd love to experiment with these as a replacement to stock fans. 2 miles away, over at the Hurricane Room at the warehouse. Please enjoy this transition. I made it myself. Love that drone. The Hurricane Room with 30 Hurricane Room air filters and 4 more S19j Pros. I've got 2 95s and 2 104s in here, all dutifully hashing away forever and ever, never asking for a day off, never asking to go home early or trying to get travel pay or wondering if I'll bring in a cooler full of ice and water when I come in. I kid, I legit love the space crew, even when Henry leaves me totally stranded to unload a full semi-truck full of lights and truss with just Tosh. This system in here is pretty simple. A 42 CFM fan here in the back, some expertly engineered insulating foam deflector shields coaxing the hot air from those miners into said fan, and 16 square feet of filtered air returning in from the front. It's real loud though. I'm waiting on boxes from both Upstream and Cryptology Consulting to see just how quiet an S19j can be in the wild, so that should be pretty interesting once those arrive. I'm gonna take a road trip to Texas in about a week to move these 4 S19js over to be remote hosted with the boys at Musk Miners. The power here in Orlando is just too expensive and it's eating away at the fruits of my money tree. But all 6 of my S19j Pros are pulling in pretty reliably about 0.0027 BTC per day. And today that's worth $108.93. I'm hoarding Bitcoin, so I'm not looking too close at today's dollar price of it, but for the sake of reporting profitability in May of 2022, 6 S19j Pros with a total hash rate of just over 600 terahash will net you 3,267 USD value of Bitcoin per month before your electrical costs. By moving my machines over to Musk Miners' remote hosting facility, I will take advantage of their 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour electricity offer, and these 6 miners will produce $2,184 US worth of profit after paying for electricity costs. Musk Miners is also where I buy my Bitcoin mining ASIC hardware, link in the description. Let's visit a pretend world just for a moment where Bitcoin did hit $100,000 in 2021, and this same exact mining setup would now be earning $8,121 a month. Since back here in real life, I don't plan to sell any Bitcoin until it does reach that point. Well, I'm basically earning that now. No, I'm not. But, you know, like, I am. It's just, I'm not. But I am. So, if I ignore that electricity costs money, my whole mining operation is generating $4,134 every month, while I sleep or eat or travel or throw balls at the dog. Back in the real world where I do pay for power, that number is $2,988 a month. Evidently, that's about the average salary of an umpire, referee, or other sports official. Little tidbit for you. If you're looking for ASIC mining equipment, or if you just want to ask questions and talk about heat and noise and money, and imagine Kelster's wife bringing you cookies and sandwiches while you work in the yard, or if you just want to speculate with other people who do too, come on over to my Discord server, link in the description. Love saying link in the description. End of presentation.